Hello there fellow humans, and today I'm gonna review the T22 Medium because it is in the shop, and I'm also gonna very quickly review the very new Sentinel, which is in crates, isn't any good for the price, it's an average vehicle, so don't buy it, don't even bother that it's there, it never existed, buy a T54A2 if it shows up in the shop. So, with that, we go to the T22 Uncatchable, a vehicle that's been in the game for a very long time, and that costs 17,500 gold right here, or 36 euros, which is quite a lot for a single tank. So you really have to like the T62A and the Object 140 a lot to get this vehicle, and that is already my recommendation. If you don't have the 62A and you don't have the Object 140, ideally have both. If you don't have one of them, you don't even consider buying this vehicle. And that's my recommendation for all premium tanks. If you don't have a similar tech tree version that you're already proven to enjoy, don't spend money on a vehicle like this one, because there are no refunds in Blitz. So if you don't enjoy the 62A, you're probably not going to enjoy this one. However, you might enjoy the bundle because 17,500 gold is a pretty good price for this vehicle with equipment and 30 times 5s that are unfortunately locked to the vehicle, but obviously you're going to get extra free XP, crew XP also. But the regular XP is just going to get wasted, so that's a bit unfortunate. You also get more stuff here, a pizza avatar or something like that, but these to me have no extra value. They never did, but this is a good bundle for what you get. You get the tank, you get the equipment, and you get the 30 times 5s. That for 17.5k is a good bundle right there. Then, before we go into the stats and the armor, obviously consumables, it does have tungsten rounds available. If you want to use tungsten, use it if you feel good with it. And there is no forcing anybody to use any consumables, provisions, or equipment, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that think like, oh, you have to use this, you have to use that. No, you don't. In terms of consumables and equipment, you use which gives you the best feeling and the best performance. I personally don't use tungsten ever, but if you really think that tungsten gives you an advantage, use it. Then, with this vehicle, I don't use the protective kit, which you might see to be a mistake. However, I like milk. Then, ammo, as always. Any vehicle that has a regular ammo loadout, AP, premium round, HE. Diagonal line, most AP, less premium, less HE. That's how it works. Now, how do I equip this vehicle? Now let's look at the stats of the T22 Medium compared to the other Soviet tier 10s, and if anybody tells you that a 5mm difference in penetration is relevant, then they're either not that smart or they should be kept away from children.
Defamation.
Now, here's the thing, 3.5k DPM, it's pretty much right in the middle between the 62A and the Object 140. It's kind of the trend of the T22 Medium, where it's like the 62A is the bullier, heavier, well-armored tank, and the Object 140 is a light, nimble, high DPM vehicle. And Wargaming did a pretty good job at differentiating the 62A from the Object 140. They kind of made the Object 907 entirely pointless in the process, but I think the 62A and the Object 140, they're both in decent places. I think the 62A is a much better tank still, but the T22 Medium pretty much combines both of them into one. So if you really like the 62A and you really like the Object 140, you're probably going to do decent with the T22 Medium as well. However, there is a few little quirks that you have to play different with it, which we'll get into later. However, the weapon handling, yeah, that's kind of where this thing lacks, because it doesn't have the great iron time, it doesn't have as good dispersion. I mean, it's pretty much the same as the 62A, but it does lack out against the Object 140. And the 907, it really has two advantages. That's 1 degrees extra gun depression and its dispersion. The rest of it is entirely pointless. So I wouldn't ever consider the 907 in its current state. Get the 62A, get the Option 40, and if you want a premium to it, the T22 Medium is the better choice, really. Even though its weapon handling isn't that great compared to the others, it still does quite well. 6 degrees of gun depression, obviously, is very usual for Soviet vehicles, and then the mobility between the T22 Medium and the 62A is pretty much identical, except for the 10 degrees less traverse speed, which does actually make quite a big difference if you're in a brawling situation with another medium. It's not really going to have too much of an impact if you're fighting a heavy tank, but if you're fighting another medium, that 10 degrees of traverse are going to be quite crucial, and the Object 140 has similar as well to the 62A. So it does lose out on the traverse, but the rest of the mobility is somewhat similar right there. And the armor is where this vehicle does quite well. However, the 62A still have thicker plates of the turret and the hull, but generally I would say the 628 is a slightly better tank than the T22 Medium. So why would you buy the T22 Medium? Yeah, that's a good question. Well, we're going to have to look at the armor as well. And obviously the performance down here, it means absolutely nothing. Comparing a premium tank to a tech tree tank never made sense in the first place. And you can see the 628 and the Object 140 pretty much have the same performance, despite getting to that performance number quite a bit differently. So, in the end, don't put too much weight on the numbers like these. However, what you should consider is the armor on the T628. It's pretty good on the turret. Now, obviously, a vehicle like this lives off its mobility. So if you stay stationary, then it's only your fault if you get penned in the weak spot of the turret right here. For example, the tiny cupola, which is pretty difficult to hit and almost impossible to penetrate, but it can get shot at in some places. And then obviously next to the gun, which is also a weak spot for pretty much any rounded tank in the game, right? You see a lot of repeating patterns here, and if you watch my videos for quite a while, you see that pretty much everything eventually starts repeating a lot, because Blitz, if you start understanding it, sort of becomes very simple again. That the same things happen again and again and again. For example, where every vehicle that has a rounded turret pretty much has a weak spot next to the gun, because obviously that's how rounded turret works, and if you can't hit this spot, you can go through it quite easily. Now, the hull of this thing is very funky, so don't try to shoot at it while side-scraping. I mean, this is one of the very big strengths of this vehicle. You can also do reverse side-scraping in this vehicle, because of obviously the front plate is not in the way then. So that is a unique thing that this vehicle can do that is pretty much impenetrable in, because look at that, it's 1,600 millimeters. So even if you go to an angle like this, you're still pretty much impenetrable. So, yeah. That is very good what you can do with this thing. If you front side scrape, the problem is obviously this plate right here, where you can get penned because the pipe nose is very long. Now, what you want to do with this vehicle, with the 62A, I mean, you can't really angle the Object 140 unless you really angle it too far, you can get shot on the side. But the Object 140's front plate isn't really that good for angling. But the 62A, if you turn it to the side, obviously it becomes stronger. However, with this T22 Medium, because it has a pike nose like the IS-7, remember what I always say about the IS-7, never turn it to the side, because the pike nose gets weaker as you turn it to the side. So you want to keep this thing frontal and then wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it. That is how you gain strength here. And again, wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it. Do I say that for every single tank ever? Yes, I do, because the more you move the vehicle, the easier the enemy's aim is thrown off. As you already know, hopefully, the two most important parts of any battle is the start and the end. Because at the beginning, you need to find out where the enemies are going to go, how your team is going to play. Like, are they going to go to the bad side of the map? Or, like, for example, the city in Middleburg? Or are they going to play in a position that you can actually work with? Now, what I normally do in a medium tank is go to the middle here and try to find out where they're going to go. Now, in a vehicle like this with 6 degrees of gun depression, you have to use the ground a little bit. So it's very important that, for example, you start your medium tank journey with an E50M, because it does have more gun depression than something like this. You wouldn't want to start out with a 6 degree tank, because you need a lot of map knowledge to know where you can peek and how to position the vehicle exactly to get extra gun depression, like, for example, right here. If I drive up this hill another way, if I stay closer to the windmill, then I won't have the gun depression to fire at anybody, and that is definitely a risk that normally isn't worth taking, but in this case, you can hide the hull quite well still, and then fire down into the vehicle. And you can see the T22's cupolas, they're absolutely tiny, so unless the vehicle's right in front of you and stationary, you're never gonna hit those. So keep the vehicle wiggling, and most importantly, don't front side scrape like that guy, because the front plates can be penned very easily, and you can side scrape all you want. In that position, you are gonna get easily penned through the front. I'm gonna peek out and go straight through his front again. There is nothing he can do about that. And again, he's one shot, he re-peeks me. You just don't do that. And essentially, the only difference between a bad player and a person that stays a bad player and a person that eventually develops and becomes better at the game, the only difference is understanding what's going wrong and then learning from it. Right? That's the only difference. If you get shot in a position, if you get shot doing a move, or if something doesn't work out, understand why it didn't work, and then do it different the next time. That's it. Right? And with the T22 Medium, what that guy should have learned probably 50 battles ago, depending on how long he has the tank, is that you don't sidescrape the T22 like that, that it is a bad idea to do that, because the front plate is at its strongest head-on. If you sidescrape, the front plate becomes easily pinnable. And the 121B, he drives into a wall. Now, I'm very famous for driving into walls. However, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you do it where no enemy can hit you, right? If you always have cover around you, like now, I'm using the ground here to fight this IS-4. I don't need the gun depression because I have the natural curvature of the map that gives me some extra cover to the hull here. And obviously, I'm going to peek out quite far here and I'm going to get shot for it. But you shouldn't really do that because obviously, I have to admit, I'm in a stage in my Blitz career where I no longer really care about my performance because I already achieved anything. So I'm just playing to the target of how bad can I be while still beating everybody. And it's been the case for the last 2 years anyway. So, this Hooray, what is he going to do? Nothing. I'm going to go out. You could more precisely aim at the track here. Might even make sense to go for the front track here, but if he has a repair kit, you might not get into cover at the same time. So, don't risk it. And I'm a T22 medium against the Hooray. What is he going to do? What is he going to do? And that's almost 4k damage with no effort. So in the end, the T22, two most important things they have to remember is know the ground, know the map, understand where you can go. And the second thing is, you have an angled front plate. Don't try and sidescrape that. And we continue on to Hellas with 2 versus 2 mediums. Well, light tank and medium, but for brawling purposes, fighting purposes, light tanks and medium tanks are pretty much the same thing. The only big difference light tanks have is obviously their stealth. Now, as you can see, the M48's not doing his job, and that's not great because you have an M48 pattern. You have the ultimate gun depression machine. You can go here and play this position, but you can see right here, I only have 6 degrees of gun depression, but I drive up the side of this hill and give myself extra gun depression to support the vehicle, right? Here I don't have. I very slowly move forward because I could spot someone. And now, I haven't spotted anyone, I haven't been spotted, so now I can take these shots right here, and I only go exactly as far as I have to. I'm not going to over-peak and go too far, because then, if there would be a medium tank up here or a light tank, I could still move away quickly. And now I own the map. Because the Vickers Light is brawling with heavy tanks, so that's not how you play a medium tank or a light tank. The M48 pattern is dead. Unexpectedly, because if you have a medium tank and you drive it straight into heavies, then you're an idiot. But in this case, here's a 628 who definitely knows how to brawl. I mean, this is basically unfair. This almost hurts to destroy him. However, I'm still not going to jump him, right? I know this guy's completely incompetent and out of his depth, but I'm still going to play somewhat cautious here. I'm still trying to go for the track. I'm still going to wiggle the tank. I'm going to obviously turn away here and then wiggle back because I know what his reload is. And he's again gonna bounce. And what does he do? He's gonna pen the front plate. Another very important thing to note, because it just happened. There's an ammo rack behind the front plate, so be a bit careful with that. Obviously, you can't ever prevent it happening. So don't be scared of getting ammo racked, because that's just gonna make you perform worse, pretty much. But be mindful that it's there and that it's a possibility that it could happen. And now in this case, 3k damage done. And the Vickers Light still full HP. I have no idea how he did that, but he somehow survived. Probably got ignored. But learn it from me and learn it from that M48 pattern. You're a medium tank. You own the map. You control the map. Your performance doesn't necessarily come from you having 200 more DPM. It doesn't come from you having 100 more gun depression, from 1 degree more gun depression. It doesn't come from you having 0.1 more accuracy. It doesn't come from that. Your performance as a medium tank comes from your understanding of the map and how battles unfold, and your ability to ideally never be in front of the enemy. To always be at the side, to always approach from the side, to always shoot them in the side, and to always be the one that fires at the enemy without getting shot back. That's where your performance as a medium tank comes from, right? So, with that, if you really enjoy the T22, do you? Put it down in the comments and we'll know more. But if you don't have the T22 and you have a 628, you have an Option 140, and you want to Medium Premium that plays very similar to them and essentially extracts its performance the same way, then the T22 Medium can be a worthy purchase. So tell me, do you have it? Do you want it? In the comments, and see you in the next one.